Z-speed back with a front bearing install. So let's get started. Now that we've got the rim off, all we really have to do to get to the hub assembly is remove the caliper and the rotor. Just those two pieces right there, and that'll give us clear access to the hub assembly. So really only two bolts, two 14mm bolts holding the caliper on, and we don't have to disassemble the caliper, we just have to remove the caliper. So I believe there's two 14mm bolts holding the caliper on, and we've got quite a bit of torque holding the caliper on, as you would imagine, because it's the primary braking system of the car, the front braking system. So you're really going to need a breaker bar. I would recommend a breaker bar to get those bolts loose. It took quite a bit of force for me to pop those loose. So once you get those loose, you're able to remove the caliper. Unfortunately, sometimes the caliper is not so easily removed from the rotor, and you may need to actually take a rubber mallet and give it a few whacks to loosen it from the rotor assembly, so you can separate the two, because you need to basically hang the caliper from the top of the suspension there with a wire, and it's quite heavy if you leave the rotor and the caliper together. So if you have any sticking problem, don't worry, it should break loose with a few whacks from a nice rubber mallet. I had that problem, so, and then sometimes you won't, so it just depends on your pads and your springs inside your caliper. But once you do separate the two, then you can take, I used a piece of speaker wire, but you can use a coat hanger or whatever you have available to slip it into the caliper and then suspend it up from the top up inside the wheel well somewhere. There's quite a few good places to hang it. What you really don't want to do is put any pressure on the brake line, which is basically a soft, supple rubber that could easily tear. And now what I'm doing is removing the speed sensor, which is a 12mm bolt. We're going to get that out of the way so we can easily access the 4 hub assembly bolts. Okay, now we can go ahead and loosen the 4 bolts holding on the hub assembly. Once again, there's quite a bit of torque, to be exact, 65 foot-pounds of torque for the hub bolts, and you may need a breaker bar again to break those loose. Once you break them loose though, they come out relatively easily, unless you're exposed to some kind of corrosion, I believe. And I found that it was easier to leave this bottom bolt in, and I'll show you why right here. Because of this protrusion right here, this little piece of metal that protrudes out, it keeps it from slipping out completely, and you can see where it catches right there at the knuckle. And it's no need to really take that bolt out, because that becomes a great pilot bolt later on when you go to reassemble the hub, the new hub back in. It becomes a great way to stabilize the hub without trying to hold the bolt and the hub together, because it's already in there. And if it's not broke, don't fix it, because you would literally have to pound that bolt out, or you could take a rubber mallet to pop it out. There's no real need to force it out, because it's actually beneficial on the reinstallation of the new hub assembly. So let's just leave that in, but if you really wanted to take it out, I'm sure you could probably manhandle that out, but there's no real need to at this point. And now we're ready to place the dust shield back on. So we will use, we'll go ahead and combine the hub assembly and the dust shield and put those on together. Now Nissan did a neat little trick. They put a green dot right there, as you can see that green dot. And that green dot should face towards the engine bay, not towards you. So I put this dust shield on backwards. And I found that out later when I went to reinstall the rotor, because it was touching the rotor, and that's obviously not a good idea. So make sure the green dot faces towards the engine bay. Thanks Nissan for putting that green dot there. Unfortunately, I did not know that, and I reinstalled it backwards, and I had to take it all back apart and flip the dust shield. But let's just say you got the dust shield correctly positioned, and now we're going ahead and using that pilot bolt to hand tighten in, and that gives us nice stability there. And now we're able to go ahead and thread the other 3 bolts back on, and it goes pretty smoothly from here. Okay, once the bolts are relatively tight, you're ready to torque the hub down to 65 foot-pounds each bolt. When you go to torque them down, I would recommend that you use an X pattern top to bottom, and that should equalize the foot-pounds all the way around the hub. After that has been torqued down, all you really have to do is put the rotor and the caliper back on, and you are literally ready to roll. So I hope this video helped you out. Please like and subscribe if it did, and Z-Speed will be back soon with another video. Thank you very much.